Well, welcome again, everybody, to another edition of UnBolted. I'm your host, MJ Bolt. And with us tonight, we have Pam Orebaugh, who is running again for the Central Valley School District Position 5. Pam, welcome. Thanks for
Thank you.
being with us tonight.
Thank you for having me. I'm glad I could come back. Thank you.
Yes, me too. Through all the technical difficulties, Pam was having extreme technical difficulties. It was pretty cute, but hey, that shows your grit and your tenacity. You hung in there and made it through it, right?
Well, I need, we're 3 computers didn't work. Now I'm on my phone because we couldn't get 3 computers. But one of them, you saw MJ, where it looked like I was in a horse shed where it was just flashing, and it was like, what is going on here? So yeah,
it'd be great to do for a Halloween special if you wanted to scare the heck out of the kids, or something, right?
Not for a school board candidate interview.
No.
That could be scary for sure.
Yeah, that was pretty interesting. I've never seen a computer do that. So
and mine has never. I've used it for I don't know how many Zoom calls or whatever. And that one, the other 2 are just I don't know what's going on with them. But the one I use all the time, that's the one who was the my computer I use more. So I don't know what was. It just went nuts. I don't know what's wrong with it.
Yep. Well, technical stuff is always fun. When it works great, it works great. And then when it doesn't, it's like, oh my gosh. So Pam, for those people that don't know you, tell everybody about yourself, what your background is, and why you're running for this position. You are a current school board member. And so, tell them about what is motivating you to run in the first place, but also run again. And yeah, your background.
So my background is I have 5 children. One is still at Central Valley School District as a student, so I'm still a parent. We've been taxpayers in the Central Valley School District for a long time. But we've had my kids have had great. They've gone on, a couple of them to college, great careers. Central Valley really prepared them well for life, and that's the goal of an education, a public school or a private school, is that kids get the education and the skills they need to meet their goals in life and to be productive citizens. And I'm proud to say that, the 4 that have launched or have done that. And our youngest that's in high school, is definitely on track to reach her goals and be a productive citizen. So when COVID hit, and we still had our last, our youngest in school, and they went all online and the teachers weren't showing up, and there's these mandates, and we were appealing to the school board and they just would not advocate. They wouldn't listen to parents and they wouldn't advocate for us. And I was like, hold on, what is going on here? I've been very happy with our other kids. I thought we had good communication with principals and teachers, but when we got to something at the district level, I'd never been there before with an issue. So, and people were also not even related to me talking about it, saying, I think you need to run for school board. So I really believe it was just a calling God saying you need to run for school board. So I did, got elected, and it was, a 4-1, pretty much, for the older people who've been on the board for a very long time, decades, really. And myself, I was the new one who came in. And my whole attitude is, we just need to work together. We need to be respectful. We can have our differences, but how can we work for the best of our kids? And that's what I really tried to do for 2 years, and collaborated on numerous things to get done with them. And then 2 years ago, Anise and Stephanie were also elected. And since then, we've really been able to take that parent and community voice and whether it's policies or whether it's really, even more so watching the budget. I was watching the budget, asking a lot of questions, but when 2 more people come in and they're doing that also, we can really ensure that budget is being, very fiscal in how we're spending things and what we're spending things on. And then also any advocacy at the state or the federal level that needed to occur. And we've done that for numerous things. As you know, MJ, local control is vital. It really runs everything. If we have the state interfering in the local school board and what we're allowed to do, that affects everything from budget, curriculum, sports, everything. So we advocated for local control. We've advocated for parents' rights. We've also advocated for safe and fair girls' sports. And I think that's the most lightning rod one right now, more so than, we've also advocated for safe officials for like higher penalties for those who are disparage or hurt our sports officials. So we've done lots of advocacy. Right now the focus is only on girls sports for some reason that we've done, but we've done a lot of advocacy at the state level, and even some at the federal level. But it's all that, listening to the community and what is our community telling us, what are our parents telling us, not just listening to one voice, not just listening to what the teachers or the state or even the district would like us to do, but no, really, what does our community want? And that's one thing I started when I first got elected. I said that the school board should be this bridge between the community and the district. We're not elected to represent the district. We're not elected to represent the state. We're elected to represent the community. And I've taken that to heart, to really represent the community. And it includes our staff. It includes, the teachers and all of our staff. But it's the parents, it's our taxpayers, it's those who live in the Central Valley School District. So the reason I'm running again is because we've done good work. We've done a lot of work on academics, and I want to continue to see that work through. And then, the other work I've talked about with advocating for parents' rights, advocating for safe and fair girls sports, but also just ensuring our budget, like we're spending everything in our budget wisely. We're not limiting what our kids or our teachers need, but we're not being extravagant either, and I have numerous examples of how we have done that to ensure that, our kids have what they need, but yet we're not overspending on that. So in a nutshell, I'm running again because I really like the direction that we have done very vigilantly with the district and listening to the community. And I want to continue to do that work. That's what I'm running again.
Awesome. And that is so important. I mean, and being a former school board member, it takes you a little bit to get, get stuff under your feet a little bit, because you're drinking out of fire hose, you're learning policy, and governance at a school district level, and how to work with your superintendent, how to work with other school board members, just all of that. It's just a lot. And so you've kind of gotten all that under your feet now, and you learn how to be most effective, and you learn where your leverage is, and how to really affect change, because it isn't just you, right? You have to get others to vote along with you to make the changes you want to see. And I think that's so important, Pam. I really appreciate what you're saying about being a representative of the citizens of the community on that school board, that you are elected to be their voice on that school board, and to do, the community as a whole, their bidding. And yes, you got to follow the laws, but that doesn't mean you have to just, rubber stamp them. You have, when you hear your community saying something different, just like through COVID, I mean, that was a really tough place to be, because people were screaming, yelling, like, no, this is not good for our kids. And yet when they're just being met with, well, sorry, it's just state law. No, you can do more. And I've been really impressed. You guys have really stepped up, like you said, with Anise and Stephanie additions the last 2 years. Now you guys have the majority on the school board, a conservative majority. It doesn't mean you agree with everything, right? I'm sure you guys don't agree on everything.
Right.
But you guys have really made some stances on some stuff. You've passed some resolutions, especially where you have the state, kind of pushing one thing, and you have the federal government going complete opposite direction, especially with girls sports.
Right.
That kind of puts you guys in an interesting position. So let's talk about that a little bit more, because I personally appreciate that. Pam, I would not probably have done what I've done if it wasn't for playing girls sports and not having to compete against boys. I was a golfer, and in the small town of Weiser, I did play on the men's team because we didn't have a girls team. But once I was a sophomore, we moved to Spokane, and we had a girls team, and I excelled. In fact, I won state. I got a golf scholarship. I got, I went to University of Iowa on a golf scholarship. None of that happens if I have to compete against boys, let alone the whole, locker room and bathroom thing. It just horrifies me. So talk to us about that, like what you guys have done there.
So the state of Washington mandates that we allow any of our students into the bathroom, the locker room, and the sports how they identify, and there's no boundaries. You can be, how you were born on Monday and change your identity and go into the opposite sex on Tuesday. So they don't have to mandate treatment or certain hormone levels. There's nothing. Nothing. You just say, if you're a boy, you say I'm a girl, and you're in girl spaces and girl sports, and that's it. And that's what the state of Washington requires. Now we have pushed back on things as we can. The WIA put out 2 amendments last year, and the 2 amendments were girls sports were only for biological girls, and there would be an open third category, so anybody, even biological females, anybody could compete there. It's not like a transgender category, it's an open category, but with the caveat that biological girls have their own spaces for sports. So we advocated for those 2 amendments, and we wrote a resolution and a letter and sent it to the WIA and also to our legislators regarding those 2 amendments. Now the WIA.
Let me clarify just real quick, because when you say we, I want to make sure people understand it was you as a school board voted on that. And then you signed that resolution as the entire school board. It's not just Pam individually, right? This was something that you voted on as a school board, correct?
Correct. Now, it was Denise and Stephanie and I that voted for it, and we signed our names to we all signed those of us who voted for it signed our name to it. But exactly, I mean, there's numerous things we can all bring whatever we want to the school board and present it, and I've done that on a couple different occasions. But you're right, we're not like legislators where we can act individually. We act as a board, as a unit,
right? And that means something to a the legislator or the legislature. When something comes to you from the board that has agreed upon this, it might be a split vote, it might be a 3-2 vote, but it's still the majority of the board voted on this. And I don't know if that it was in those cases. So here you guys voted, so you brought that, and sorry I interrupt you, but I think that's an important distinction that people understand, because you guys are being proactive and listening to the people. You were able to present this information and these decisions by the board, these resolutions to these elected officials, right?
Right. Too, as we did a resolution and a letter and sent it to both the WIA and our legislators. So both of them.
Yeah. And so what have you seen, any kind of things happen with that? I think, we saw the legislature really, I mean, our conservative legislators really tried to advocate very, very hard for parental rights this year, and some of these other things. And I know they weren't successful, but I feel like part of the reason why they were so big about advocating for it is because of the pressure they got from the school boards.
Well, and hopefully we did not see our state legislature do anything related to girls sports. Now, the parental rights is another area that we sent we sent a short and a long letter to our state legislators, because they were looking at 2 separate bills, a House bill and a Senate bill, that took the previous parental rights. It was a parental rights law that got passed the session before that was fabulous. But then they brought it back to be looked at and changed, and they totally changed most of the meaning of it. Just horrific things were being proposed. Like as a school district, we can release a child to whoever we want. We don't need parental permission. As a school district, we can go and take your child for medical care without parental permission, and we don't even have to tell the parents about it. And I mean, just things like, and then there's, not having to turn over records, and there's not having to report your child was abused for, up to 48 hours. I mean, just absolutely horrific things in what is so-called the Parents' Rights Bill. So I do applaud our legislators, that are Republican legislators, that were really able to head a lot of that off. What ended up passing in 1296 was not nearly as bad as what was proposed. But as well as I do that once they get it proposed, I'm concerned they're going to keep bringing that back. Because we said as a school board, even if the law, we didn't say it as a school board, we didn't vote on it, and we don't break Open Public Meetings Act, but I talk to Anise. So I talk to Anise quite a bit. I don't talk to Anise and Stephanie. You know how that works, MJ. You
Yeah.
can't talk out of, have a quorum outside of a
Yeah.
meeting. But Anise and I, when we were talking, and my belief, as well as I know Stephanie too, and possibly even the rest of the board, we would say, well, just because the state allows us to release a child to whoever we want, we're not going to do that. We are going to say no just to their parent or whoever their parent says. We're not in the business of healthcare. We're not taking your children for healthcare. If there's an emergency that arises, we'll call 911 and then we're going to call the parents. That's the stance. Basically the status quo of how things have been before all this craziness happened with the last session. So luckily, and we did quite a bit of advocacy related to those, against those changes in those bills. So I absolutely agree. I think a lot of our advocacy, and I know other school districts were also, that also gave them, they're hearing from their community, they're hearing from school boards, and this is not what we're here for. We're here to teach our kids. We're not here to get between our kids and their parents. We're not here to be doing medical treatment on children. So I'm hoping that gave them a little ammunition or fire under them to be able to get done what they were able to accomplish.
Yeah. It's changed so much since I was on the school board, 10 years ago. And this is why elections matter so much and why people need to vote right, for in this election. A lot of people kind of, after the presidential election, a lot of people kind of, tap out and don't pay attention. But these local elections are so important because we have to have people that are bold and courageous as our elected officials in these governance situations on our school boards that will actively, of course, you're trying to work amicably with each other, and you're always going to have difference of opinions, but you work, you push, you have to be courageous to list, to bring the voice of the citizens that it's not okay that we close our schools again. Or that we know that now. It's not okay to require masking of every student. We know that now. Or even, this mandate of vaccinating every person. And you need courageous, bold leaders like yourself that will stand up for it. I mean, I think that's critical, don't you?
Oh, absolutely. It's absolutely critical because otherwise, and that's a distinct difference between my opponent and myself is he actually is running he actually told me before he filed. He came to a school board meeting and told me, he said, I'm going to run against you because I'm upset that you guys, the work you did in standing up for girls sports. He said, I've had a lot of transgender students in my classroom. They do just fine. And I tried to explain, but this is sports. For one thing, we have focused on sports. Despite all the accusations, otherwise, we focused on girls' safe and fair sports. But that's what he told me he's running. And he also is, politics don't belong in the school board, but we are a political entity. We are. So his stance is we're just going to do whatever the state says. And my comeback to that is if you're just going to do whatever the state says, we're not needed.
No. Exactly.
We're not needed. Why have a school board because if all you're doing is what the state says, they can just give the directive to the superintendent and his cabinet and administrative team. You don't need us. We are instead, we are elected to be the voice of the community and our parents. And if all we're going to do is rubber stamp and follow the state, then we're not needed.
No. And I believe that's a dereliction of duty. And there's a lot of pressure to do that when you're on any board or any elected position, because you always have your paid executives, that are experts in the field, right? But again, your job as an elected school board, director is to bring that citizen voice and help cause the change and cause the policies that the citizens, want for their school district. And it is very, very hard because more and more control has gone to the state. The more funding comes from the state now. So of course, then they tie the hands. So we have to have very, advocate friendly, advocating strongly school board members that aren't afraid to push back and say, this is not what our community wants. So it's very important. Tell us a little bit more, Pam, about the distinction between you, and Mark Bitts is running against you,
Mhm.
correct? Former
Right,
teacher.
right.
And I know Mark. He's a great man, and he's an
Mhm.
amazing teacher.
Mhm.
He taught my son many years, and I respect Mark. I think we have
Mhm.
very different philosophies and
Yeah,
ideologies,
yeah,
but
yeah.
tell us why people should vote for you over Mark Betts in this race.
So I agree. My daughter also had him, and he's a fabulous teacher. And I really think that is where his strengths lie. And obviously, I can't tell him, where your strengths, and you don't have a right to run because that's our. He has absolutely a right to run, but his passion and his strengths are for teaching kids for sure. Now you bring that to the school board, and who are you going to represent then? And he has said, like, you guys should just do, we shouldn't have politics. You should just do what the state says. So who's he really going to be representing? And he brings that teacher voice. I think he has kids. I have no idea how old they are, though he's older than I am, so I doubt they're still in school. But do you bring the parent voice? Do you bring the community voice if you're saying we should just do what the state says? So that's one distinct difference. It is we had myself and the board together have advocated for our community, and actually that's what he said spurred him to run, is our advocacy for the community. I have a daughter still in school, so do Anise and Stephanie have kids still in school, so we bring that parent voice. But as you well know, the teachers, and I love our teachers, absolutely love them, but they do have good representation already with the WEA, with administration that is all used to be teachers. And again, nothing bad about that, but there's, again, missing that parent voice and that community voice. And that's why another big difference is I bring the community voice, I bring the parent voice. And then ideologically, he's, came out kind of in the beginning being a little more, I'm not accusing him of lying, but a little more force telling about his beliefs. And now he's really scaled that back to the last flyer I looked at, like, oh my gosh, it looks like something almost that I could do. Yeah, for the community, for the parents. And he's just not being forthcoming about other comments he has made related to, we just need to do what the state says. And I'm upset you guys stood up for girls' sports. Those are not ending up on flyers. So ideologically, he has said he's very, he's pro-trans, and because he's had, trans students. And so why are you guys standing up against them? And I was very clear. We worked very hard to not alienate any of our kids by saying we are standing for girls' safe and fair sports.
Yeah.
But even despite that, the kids he's feeling it, and some other, pro-trans activists are feeling that we stood up against them, even though that was not our intent at all. And nothing we framed was against them at all.
Right.
So that's a big ideological difference. He's also made comments about if we have the money, we just need to spend it. And a big goal of our current board has been to be as fiscally responsible as we can with our money, because it's taxpayer money. And I understand, I take it to great heart that our taxpayers are hurting, and every penny that they give us, we need to steward very well. And just because we've been able to collect that levy money, or the capital levy money, or our bonds, doesn't mean that we should just willy-nilly spend it. We need to be very, very fiscally responsible and transparent to our community with where we're spending the money and why we're asking for, when we go out for a levy, why are we asking for this amount of money?
Right.
And so that's another big difference. He had said if we have the money, we need to just spend the money.
And it's been proven that, more money, our state is spending more money on education, more money than it ever has, and the results are not improving, despite what Superintendent Chris Reichdahl wants to say. Right? And so so more money that's not necessarily positive results. So
well, it hasn't been, but even then, like what we have to spend wisely, and and that's what we really have done, especially the last few years. We have really dug deep into the budget. Where can we save money? Can you guys, down to like, can you get another bid for milk? Can we get another bid for insurance? Can we get, where else can we save money, but not cutting what we're providing in the classroom? Because that's where the rubber meets the road. That's why we're there. That's why the kids are there. But my concern, when he is endorsed by the Democrat Party, he's endorsed by the teachers.
He's endorsed by the Democrat Party?
Well, he said endorsed, but they also gave him money.
Oh, yeah.
They gave him a pretty nice donation, the state Democrat Party. So that tells you his ideological versus like I would never even seek their endorsement because I'm conservative in my values. There is a bus coming from, I think it's called the Washington bus. I think they're actually a 501c, but they're coming from Seattle this weekend. They're paying for people to come. They're putting them in hotels, and they are coming to as activists for 4 candidates in Spokane, and Mark is one of them.
Yeah,
So,
Jackson's
you
another
are who you,
one.
you
Yep.
know, you are who you keep your company with. So despite him trying to kind of water down his message of what he really stands for, the Progressive Voters Guide rates him high. He's the one to vote for, and the Democrats, endorse and support him. And this, Washington bus, which another flyer said, Democrat socialists, and that's who he associates with. And I just wish he'd be on like more forthright and like, hey, this is who I represent. This is who I am, instead of trying to appear to be more conservative than those that he's aligning himself supporting. So,
Yeah.
but a really big deal is, who are you going to listen to and represent? I think he'll be teachers and state only, and I'll be a community that includes teachers, staff, parents, and taxpayers. And oh my gosh, and ideological differences. I mean, we're going to advocate for our community to the state and to the federal government when necessary. And it's a small portion of the work we have done, but it's vital work. I mean, honestly, most of the work we have done has been on academics or policies that we need updated, and budget items. But when something arises that we need to advocate for our community for, whether it's something that's coming from the state or the federal level, or our community is asking us to, please, can you get involved and advocate here? Well, then that's our job. That's what we were elected to do. And that's what I've done, and that's what I will continue to do. So that's a big difference between us. When I was first elected, that board rubber stamped everything. Everything that came across. Even when I was watching the meetings before I was elected, I'm like, do you guys talk outside the meeting? How do you know how to be voting? You guys, it comes up, you all vote yes, you move on. There's no dialogue. You're not asking questions. Like, how do you do this? And as well as I do, that most of our model policies come from WASDA, the Washington State School Directors Association. It is vetted by attorneys, but it also comes with a very slant to the left in that ideological base. Because when I look at the law and I look at some of our model policies, I'm like, yeah, no, you went above the law on this one. And so that's where it's very important that you have school board directors who will look at the law versus the model policy and listen to the community and say, how can we change this model policy, which then runs that area of the district, right? How can we change it to meet what our community wants? We have to ensure we're in the law, but how can we change that?
Yeah, the model policy has like you said, there's an interpretation that happens from what law to the policy, right? There has to be, because there's more detail, right? The law is ambiguous in places. And so, yes, there's definitely policies. We've seen that across the state where you have some school boards that have tweaked from the model policy because it didn't reflect accurately what the community wanted. And there was room within the law to do that. So, I really appreciate that you guys are doing it. And that's not an easy thing to do. You're kind of pushing up against a grain on that, but it's very important.
It's vital, but it takes a lot more time because you have to dig into the law. Like, look at the sex ed is a good example where the law says we have to start teaching it in 4th grade, and there's a bunch of other things, but that's just one item, is you have to start teaching it in 4th grade. Now, there is curriculum available K through 3. Now, our community, being more conservative, pushed against sex ed in general. But we have to meet the law, or like you say, then we're beholden to the state and their funds, and they'll just pull funds, and we can't run the district, or they just then come in and take over, and we lose all control. So we have to play with them in meeting the law. So our school board said, fine, we'll barely meet the law. And we're going to allow for strong parent opt-out. Good notifications, easy to opt your child out. Your child's always opted out unless you change your mind. Now, my concern is with somebody who, like Mark, who is aligned with that more Seattle Olympia agenda and supporters, that they would push sex ed down to the kindergarten level. That's just one example that I'm concerned about. If I lose my seat and the board turns more liberal than conservative, then that's an example of like, oh my gosh, I'm concerned, because we've held that line pretty tight, that we're barely meeting the law with sex ed. We're meeting it, but like that's it. We're not teaching
Right.
K-3. We're not going above the requirements of what that law says. So when you're aligned with, we're at Eastern Washington, we're not Seattle and Olympia. And granted, there are a lot of people here that feel, the same as some in Olympia and Washington, Seattle, but that's not the majority of our community.
No.
And so when that's who you're aligning with and you represent those values, that's concerning to me.
Yeah.
And I've been made fun of by supporters, again, not by him, but his supporters, so who knows where he really stands on, being for parents' rights. They're like, some people are bad parents, or parents' rights really is incognito for, I don't even know what they're trying to say. And I've even, somewhat gotten to some deep discussions with our superintendent over, I get it, teachers you have these children 8 hours, 7, 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, you kind of get that, like they're my kids, but they're not your kids. They're not the district's kids. They're not the state's kids. These are our parents. They belong to our parents. And we have laws for abuse and neglect, but otherwise we need to be partnering with our parents. We need to ensure our parents are informed and that they have a say in what is happening with their kids. We're not, we're going to teach them the curriculum. We're not going to teach them things that go against their family values. We're not going to hide things from parents. We want parent permission for medications and medical treatment and to release them from school. And in my time on the board, anytime a policy comes up where anywhere from communications to safety or something, I'm like, we need to ensure our parents are in here. And they say, their pushback is, Pam, it says community. I'm like, well, they are part of our overarching community, but parents are a step up, in who are we going to notify if there's an emergency? 911 and our parents, and then the community. They're not lumped in with the community. So anytime I can talk about or add to a policy parents or, parents, guardians, because some
specify, right?
Yeah, some are not. Some are guardians or maybe grandparents or aunties or something, but those who have guardianship over the child, that's who needs. I've put that in quite a few policies as I can. And I'm concerned. I don't think I'm concerned, Mark, that that's not a priority of his by the way his supporters are speaking. And that concerns me. It really does, because we need to empower our parents to be involved in their child's education. We need to partner with them. We need to loop them in. And that's the best for a child, whether it's the coursework they're on or something they're struggling with emotionally, is if the parent and the teachers can come together, or the district can come to counselors, we can come together. That is the better for that child, and honestly, even for the better of that family, instead of separating the kids from their parents. So
absolutely.
And that's the agenda. The Seattle agenda is to separate kids and parents.
Yeah, so scary. Well, and in case in point, I believe I think I heard that one of the school districts was taking away the opt out of the sex ed curriculum, or at least attempted to do that. And I'm just horrified at even the thought, that what are you thinking? Parents are the kids' best first advocate. They are the ones that are going to hear from the kids when they get home from school. They're going to know how it's going. If it's not going good, you have to listen to the parents. And yes, you want to have other community members and you want to have teachers involved in the feedback loop as well. But parents are the child's first advocates. It just is, So I appreciate that you've done that. This campaigning, you are in the thick of it, you're door knocking, you're listening to parents. Pam, once you're elected again, how do you plan to continue you personally? I know there's things that the board does as well to listen and make sure they're hearing from communities, but how do you personally plan to continue to connect with your community?
So I appreciate, there is a distinction with, we're starting the community forums again as a board, and that's a big push from the board to start doing again. But I really, I'm not going to be door knocking again. That might be a little freaky. Like, why is she at our door? But, I have a website that I would like to make more robust for, it still is my Elect Pam for kids, but I wouldn't be able to really change the name of it. But, whether I put something in there is, connect with Pam, the school board director, or meet and greets, or just something to continue to hear that parent voice, to continue to get the message out that just because the election is over doesn't mean, all the more reason I still want to hear from you. And that's been my time on the board is great. My website wasn't as active as during elections, but other manners in just whether it's going to school events and connecting with parents, whether it's, just anytime that they come and ensuring that we're talking to them, that I'm emailing back. I want to continue all of that, but look at keeping my website more active and have a better, perhaps an easier way for them to connect than my Central Valley email.
Yeah.
But part of it is, which is good, is, when, again, locally elected, locally represented, and it's not something, you can advertise and go sit at Safeway, but being in the grocery store, I don't know if it happened to you, but oh my gosh, there's some days I'm there forever because they're like, hey, I need to talk to you about, and so just that willingness to, when somebody's grabbing you or like, hey, we need to talk, and I have no idea who you are, but that willingness to, we need to talk. And, and how can we connect, whether it's here in the grocery store or we, go to coffee or have a discussion on the phone later. I've done that and I want to definitely continue to do that.
Yeah, that's
Because
awesome.
it's vital. It's absolutely vital that, and a lot of times the parents just are frustrated and they don't really even know where to go in the district.
Right.
And employees too, MJ. I get employees who are like, what do I do? Like, well, have you tried, where are you on your chain of command and who you're talking to, because as a school board, we're not in the weeds of figuring out problems. We're the governance, oversight governance, but we can definitely direct them.
Yeah.
Help them to what is their best next steps, and even alert those people, hey, you've got an employee that needs to talk to you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we do that for parents too, hey, it sounds like you need to talk to, special ed, you need to talk to this person, or this sounds like an athletic problem. It sounds like, I'm going to loop you in, but then that loop in is also that, hey, and you can report back to me, let me know the outcome of this, and let me know what you guys decide, and just that, again, that oversight, that governance oversight.
And that shows that you're personable enough for people to approach you, which is half the battle, right? That that they feel they know you care. So, just you saying that that's happening says so much to me about the type of elected official you are, that you're willing, you're approachable, you care, people know you care. And so they're going to take that opportunity to talk to you, when they see you. So that's so important. I know we're kind of coming up on time here, but I want to ask you about the other race for the school board with Brandon Arthur versus Alan Skidmore. Have you endorsed Brandon? Is that right?
Yeah.
Are you supporting his candidacy? Okay.
Yeah. So it's interesting because he didn't have to primary. So it's kind of like, just since the primary, Brandon is really, well, everybody who didn't have to primary is now really running. But I've had a couple of longer talks with him before I endorsed him. So Brandon came to speak at numerous of our school board meetings for girls' safe and fair sports when we were looking at whether it's the amendments or the resolutions, or whether it was the letter to the feds about that they're asking us one thing and the state's asking us another thing, and you guys go battle it out, but we're caught in the middle. Whether it was one of those things, he came in to speak about safe and fair girls sports. He has a daughter too. So right there, we're like, okay, we align there, that you're willing to even come to our meeting and advocate for your daughter isn't even in sports, but you see how important this is to ensure that it occurs. So, but numerous meetings with him, and he's just a very upstanding guy, very family. He is a Christian also, just like myself. He works hard for his family. He really does want to hear what the community says. We've been doorbelling together a couple of times, and I just love how he's like, tell me more about this, and let's talk about that, and I believe Anise and Stephanie, I don't know if they've officially endorsed him. I think they have also, but they've also, just like me, like I want to meet with you first. I really need to know what you're about before I'm just going to put my name
Yep. You're not going to
they give
rubber
him,
stamp an
I'm not,
endorsement
no,
either.
I'm not going to rubber stamp. I don't rubber stamp anything, right? I'm not going to do that either. But they, we've also been, here's what a school board looks like. So like you say, there's a lot to learn. And he's been coming to the meetings and he has questions after the meetings. So holy cow, what does this policy mean? Or what did this budget thing mean? Or what are you guys talking about related to this? Because it's acronym alley through half these meetings, partly too. If you're not in education, you don't really know what we're even talking about. But so he's very eager to learn. And so I would see him on the board as, continuing the work to learn and advocate. And he's very calm too. I have, never seen him wound up or upset ever, but yet also just very well spoken.
Yeah. Yeah. And, again, I think it takes somebody that's inquisitive like that, that's going to not be afraid to ask questions. Because sometimes even asking, I remember like I felt like the black sheep because I asked so many questions. And, that should never be discouraged. We need elected officials to ask questions and not just, go along with the flow. And so, yeah, I see that in Brandon as well. And I'm excited that you've endorsed them. And, I'm hopeful. Of course, I've had them on here as well. So,
yeah, which is good. That's good you've had him on. And good to go back to feeling like the black sheep. Yeah, that's how I was the first 2 years. I asked questions and they were just kind of almost like very annoyed, obviously.
Yep.
And then when Denise and Stephanie came on, they took it to a whole new level to where we changed our whole protocol on, hey, can we get these questions early? So by the time the board meeting occurs, we have this big Q&A running sheet with all our questions on it that is part of the open public record so people can see what we're asking. But otherwise our meetings were turning into 4-hour long meetings to ask all these questions.
And nobody wants that either, but it's
no.
I love that. I didn't realize you guys were doing it because you want that transparency, right? So that's awesome. Yeah.
Well, everything with our community that, there's laws on open public meetings, but we want to take it a step further. We want our community to know what we're doing, why we're doing it, what questions we're asking, what we're working on.
Yeah.
So we're constantly, can you add that to the website? Make sure this is in board docs. So board docs is like our meeting agenda, but it's also where all our meeting documents are so that people can see what we're asking and what we're doing.
Well, and they might even say, oh gosh, you guys aren't asking this question, and let you know, right? So that's awesome. I did not know you guys, that was not something that we did, 10 years ago. So I love the evolution and it should be like that. And that's why too, people that haven't been there for, appreciate their service. They served for a very long time on the board and it isn't easy. So I appreciate the people that have served on the board prior and have served for a long time, but it's also very important to get new blood and new ways of thinking on there, fresh thinking. So it's not just kind of the old, oh, we've always done that, no. That doesn't fly anymore. We can't just do that. So anything else? Oh, go ahead.
No, I just want to say, me being through just one election of 4 years is definitely not anything compared to being there for decades because it takes a lot to learn. Now, I don't see myself being on the board for decades. I just, because I agree and I even talked to Michael Cannon and Meet about it. It's where's that sweet spot where I know the job, I'm going to do good work. And yet, okay, now, like him, he's like, well, now my kid graduated and can I, mentor somebody to come up behind, and run behind me. But definitely I really want to get reelected and continue to work hard for these next 4 years and continue the work that I've done, especially with Denise and Stephanie and hopefully Brandon. And we're not these crazy activists. We're not an activist board. We're an advocacy board. We're advocating for those in our community, our students, first and foremost, our students and their parents, and then our taxpayers too, and all the staff.
Yeah, I think people are just trying to like label you to shut you up is what they're trying to do.
Well, and to pull forward votes, obviously, but it's like all they want to focus is on one way or another. They want to focus on the advocacy or work that we've done, but it's like everybody's, are you missing the fabulous academic work that we've done? And we're hearing great reports on increase in learning that is happening in our schools. And I'm so excited about, we're seeing some big fruits of the work in academics, but so we're well-rounded in our work. Let me put it that way, from academics to budget to safety to advocacy.
I got a
we're
nice
well-rounded.
comment here from Gabe Gilbreth, who's a
Oh, yes.
board member in Kennewick, supporting you from
Yes.
Kennewick. Keep up the fight, Central Valley. And he also said, hold the line against the state. Yeah, see, and this is what's happening is when you have people like Pam and Anise and Stephanie on a school board, and then you can, get this momentum to kind of push back against the state. There's other school districts that are also standing up, and that get encouraged and take a piece out of that. Courage is courage is contagious. So am I saying that right? I don't know why it's not coming out of my mouth right.
Well, and that is another new thing with us too, is we have been networking with other school boards. I mean, we do a lot of networking with Kennewick, with Linden, with Meade, with, even trying to with Moses Lake, and whether it's not to, again, we're not activists, but it's like we have a lot of the same communities and a lot of the same community concerns. So what are you guys hearing and what are you guys doing about that? But then also, if somebody's doing something, resolution or a letter to the state, then, hey, this is something our community would like to do, because there is strength, and there's definitely strength in numbers too.
Absolutely. And so by having the majority on the board, the conservative majority on the school board, yes, it's nonpartisan, but these are values, and people try to make politics ugly. Again, everything is political. You can talk about the color of the paint on your walls, and that's politics. You're discussing an issue. Politics shouldn't be ugly. Like, we've got to stand up for what we believe. And these are the decision makers for our children, for our students, for our most vulnerable. We need people to be courageous and stand up for what our values are. And we've got more and more school boards across the state that are working together and to push back on what the state, the superintendent of public instruction, and these very progressive liberal Democrats are pushing in our state. And I'm thankful for that. So thankful. Pam, how anything else that you want to make sure that people know about before this election, as they're just about probably getting their ballots tomorrow?
I know they're coming out. I know. There's a big difference between my opponent and I that is not surface level apparent, but with a little bit of digging, you even just in who we're both supported by, you can see there's vast differences between us, like we mentioned. Something that, the Republicans of Spokane County is a club. It is not Spokane GOP. My opponent is not endorsed by the official Republicans. It's a club that tends to endorse more liberal, left-leaning candidates. So don't let that lead you astray, or down that, because that's being touted also. And just, where do you want your school board? What do you want your school district to look like? Do you want us to represent the more conservative values of Spokane Valley and Liberty Lake? Or do you want us to look more like Seattle or Olympia? I mean, that really is the choice.
Yeah, thanks for, I'm glad you brought that up. There is the Republicans of Spokane County. I'm just going to say it again. That is not the Spokane County Republican Party. The Spokane County Republican Party, or Spokane County GOP, is the official Republican and the party. And the difference is that the members of the party, the true party, the official party, are the PCOs, which are elected by the citizens in the community. I'm a PCO. And so in my area where I live, about 1,000 people in my precinct, they elect me to represent them on the Republican Party. So everything that the party does is, is voted on by the PCOs, the members, including our candidates that are recommended. Right. So Pam had to go through the process. She elected to go through the process where a group of people vetted her and then recommended or not her
Mhm.
as the recommended candidate. And then the PCOs voted. And so that's true of
Right.
every one of the recommended candidates. And if you don't go through our process, then you don't even get considered because we feel it's an accountability thing.
Mhm.
And the PCOs and the vetting committee, they bring up votes. They say,
Mhm.
why did you vote on this? Why did you vote this way
Mhm.
on that? And so
Right.
it is an accountability thing. So very important distinction. They are not the same.
They're not the same. No, not at all. It's a
Not at
club.
all.
I
So
wish we
if
could use that name.
you
It's
were recommended by the official
the official
Spokane
Republican.
County Republican Party, and that's you see that on our flyers and stuff.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
congratulations on that, and I take that that's a very important, and that's why we do that vetting process in our
Mhm.
Republican Party, because we want to make sure that we're recommending very good candidates, and not just because you're the incumbent. That you're
Right.
actually we're
Right.
looking at the votes of the people that we're recommending. So yes,
Mhm.
that's very important.
Yeah.
Pam, where can people find out more information or get in contact with you?
So my website is electpam4kids.com. It's the number 4 though, all one word, just electpam4kids.com. There is a contact me page, or I have an email, the same electpam4kids@hotmail.com. I have a Facebook site. I have a YouTube. I just haven't had much on there lately, but I do have a Facebook site that's really active. So you could message me there. But the most reliable would be email. But I have a lot on my website. If you're really wondering what I stand for or don't stand for, I also have on my website a whole document. Especially if someone wants to read a lot about what I have done. I call it my results page. And I can produce all the receipts for everything I say I've done because it's public record. It's in board docs on the Central Valley School District's website. So, I'm an honest person. I do not lie. I do not, expand beyond the truth on what I've done or not done. And I can produce the receipts for what I've done on the school board. So
That's awesome. Well, you've been a great school board member, in my honest opinion.
well,
And,
thank you.
I feel like I thought I lost you for a second, but yeah. Oh, where'd you go? We're losing there you go. Maybe it's just
Shoot, I
my,
lost.
you're okay. You're okay. It's probably just time for us to finish up. So, no, I appreciate what you've done, Pam. Thank you for
Shoot.
your service. Thank you for serving the last 4 years, and thank you for continuing to run again. And we just, wish you the best. Pray for you to get positive outcome we're all looking for.
So I can't hear you.
Okay. All right.
I
We
lost you.
will.
Can you hear
Well,
me?
yep.
Okay.
We're okay. Yep. We'll finish
Somehow I
up.
lost the ability to hear you.
It's
Oh
time
my
for us.
gosh, this is like
We'll,
number 4 technology issues
we'll wrap it
today.
up. All right. Thanks,
Okay,
everybody.
thank you
Thanks,
very
Pam.
much. I appreciate you. I
Blessings.
appreciate anyone who will vote for me. I've just worked hard for you. I'll continue to work hard for you. But thank you, MJ, for having me. I appreciate this.
You bet.
Okay,
And
bye.
make sure to vote. Everyone vote now, vote. Get your votes out. Make sure your neighbors vote. A lot of these elections get decided by like 30, 40 votes, sometimes 100. So every vote matters. Thanks, everybody. Take care.